Hello and welcome to the Scholar Progenium. Today, Warlord have dropped the new force organisation system for Bolt Action 3rd edition, and let me tell you boys, my mind is blown. So yes, Warlord Games today have given us an intelligence briefing ahead of the release of 3rd edition, and it's a big one. I'm just want to get the camera rolling right now and give you guys my first thoughts, and there's just a lot more questions posed than answers just by seeing this. It's a big change. I mean, what else are they going to change? We know they're going to change machine guns. We know they're going to change the shooting phase. And really, all bets are off now because this is massive what they've done here. So I'll talk you through I'll leave a link in the description below. We've already posted a link on our Instagram and social media so you can check out the rules for yourself. But just for the sake of posterity, I'll talk you briefly through the situation right now in case you haven't had a chance to check them out already. So essentially, they say that they want to keep it at its core as an infantry combat game. But I've got some big questions because before we even go, through all the rules, long story short, boys, you could take 5 Stuarts, you could take 10 Stuarts in the new system. So, infantry. Is it going to be at its core an infantry game? I'm seeing a lot of MSU infantry, but don't let me get sidetracked. Let's have a look what they say. So, essentially, there's 6 different mini selectors. There's 6 different platoons, okay? You've got your rifle platoon, and you have to take one of these for every other type of platoon you want. Now, I have one question. It's unclear in the press release, and I'm going to email Warlord and find out the answer for this. But it says you can take 2 rifle platoons to unlock 2 any other platoon type. Now, does that mean 2 rifle platoons allows me to, with just those 2, then take 2 tank platoons, 2 artillery platoons, 2 heavy weapon platoons? It's like for every rifle platoon, you can take that many of the others. Or is it a rifle platoon per other platoon? So if I want a tank platoon, an artillery platoon, and a heavy weapons platoon, do I need 3 rifle platoons, 1 for each of those? And then if I wanted a second tank on top of that, I'd need a 4th rifle platoon or whatever. So as you can see, it's some big changes. Now, let me talk you through these platoons in a little more detail, and I'll pop the rules up on the screen now for you. But first off, we've got the rifle platoon. Now, it takes a platoon commander. You could have 2 infantry squads that can't have the engineer special rule. And one thing I would mention is throughout these rules that they've released, they've mentioned things such as the fierce rule, the engineer rule. So I'm seeing some set keywords becoming quite significant across units. So I can see that being a significant part of the new edition, just getting a feeling for that because it seems to be popping up everywhere. Okay, so we've got the two squads and an infantry commander, lieutenant essentially, and then we've got 2 infantry squads that also can't be engineers. There's an engineering platoon for that kind of thing. If you want flamethrowers, you've got to take at least, even if you want a single flamethrower team on its own, you have to take a minimum of 2 engineer squads just for that flamethrower team, but we'll get onto that in a second. Sorry, my mind's just, as you can tell, all over the place because there's just so many questions popping up in my mind here, so many ideas. But essentially, yeah, we've got, and I'll definitely do a more in-depth breakdown over the next few weeks as more rules come out, but I just really wanted to get my ideas out there for you guys because I really want to hear your thoughts. I've got all these questions. I'm going to pose them to you guys. If you've got any ideas for what you think the answers will be, what the predictions are, hit me up in the comment section down below, because I'd be really, really fascinated to hear your thoughts. And then, yeah, essentially for the rifle platoon, you can always take a sniper team. You can always take an anti-tank team. You can take up to 2 light mortars, but no mediums or anything like that. And you can have a transport per unit. So that seems all very familiar ground. You can also take a forward observer, just one, and you can take a medic if you so wish. Now, one of the interesting things that pops up in my mind here, and we'll come back to this, is that are tanks now really powerful, which we'll discuss more when we get to the tank platoon section or the vehicle armored platoon section, or are they really like a massive gamble? Because if people are going to have multiple rifle platoons just as a base because they need to unlock other units, because with the basic rifle platoon you only get access to a sniper and anti-tank team, but you get access to a sniper and an anti-tank team. So are you going to have like 5 bazookas, 5 Panzer Shreks on the field if you're facing Germans? I mean, immediately, whatever the situation, just having so many Panzer Shreks on the field is going to be big for Germans. Then are they going to take loads of howitzer, high explosive wielding vehicles to back that up? You know, are the Americans going to have the same advantage? You know, the Piat's less powerful, but the bazooka and the Panzer Shrek, really, really powerful anti-tanks. So you're going to be able to spam those just without even thinking. You don't need to pay any tax, any extra infantry to unlock that, any extra commanders. You're just going to get those because you're going to be paying the infantry platoon tax as it is. Another thing it brings to mind is, you know, are you going to have multiple small units as a matter of course? 5-man squads. You're going to have loads of artillery guns, loads of tanks. You know, if those can just be wiped out, if a 10-man squad can be wiped out as easily as a 5-man squad with the way things are going, are you going to need multiple small units? Is that the direction we're going? Are squads going to be more like fire teams? You know, in the British infantry, they'll split a squad into 2 fire teams. I'm sure that's common in many, many militaries around the world. So maybe that's more the mentality you have. You know, you have a 5-man fire team. We'll go further. So then we move on to the heavy weapons platoon. Again, you've got to take a platoon commander, so straight up you're playing attacks, and you can have 2 machine gun teams or 2 mortar teams in any combination. So this is the other big thing. This is why, you know, I'm just thinking, wow, this is going to be one of those games. Things are going to start dying. Bolt action is not going to have its reputation that it sort of carried from first edition, like, oh, that's the game where not much stuff dies, because, I mean, we don't even know what the machine gun team rules are yet. We're like, we need to know. Warlord, tell us more. But like, if someone's taking a mortar, they're taking 2 mortars. And then if you think about it like this, you're paying for an officer. So it's kind of pushing armies to have, they say you want to have the flexibility of anything you want, but I think logically it's going to push you to max into one direction. It's almost like if you think about an RPG game or like video game, or, you know, dice, you sort of might pick a level up tree in a video game and focus on that level up, you know, unlock one tree and then focus on that branch, so to speak, because then you can take, I'm looking at it and it's just mental. You can then take, once you've played for that platoon commander, you've got your 2 mortars, but, you know, I've paid for that platoon commander now, I've already paid the tax. I can now take up to 3 more mortars and up to 3 more machine gun teams, and then another 3 anti-tank teams. And then I can take a transport per unit in the platoon. So, like, you can just, let's say you're a British player, just straight off the bat, okay? Or you can take, or a German player. You can just pay for your platoon, take your rifle platoon, take your 2 squads. Then you've got 5 mortars, 3 machine guns, 3 anti-tank teams straight up. Or, you know, take 2 rifle teams, unlock 2 heavy weapons platoons, and, you know, why not have just 4 squads of infantry and 8 mortars or 8 machine guns just straight up, because you get 2, well, it'd be more, it'd be 10. Because for every heavy weapons platoon, you've got to take a minimum of 2 of either a machine gun or a mortar team. And then you can take up to 3 of mortars, machine guns, or anti-tank teams each. So if you want to just spam mortars, we don't even know what the rules are. You might not be hitting on 6s anymore. Who knows? As I said, all bets are off at this point. But you could just have 10 mortars. Just roll on those mortar dice. It's oh, it's like, what is going on? I don't know what to say, really. Now, we'll move on. So, and I'm excited, don't get me wrong. I'm just, as someone who plays, for fun, but also on the competitive scene somewhat, getting into my competitive play, one might say, my proper competitive play. I can just see the cogs whirring in some people's brains. Like, I'm going to be texting Bo Mortensen after this and finding out what he thinks. But I'll wrap up the video before that. But Bo, shout out to you, man, and defo do a response video to this. I mean, I don't even need to prompt you. I know you will. Okay, so we'll move on. We've got the engineer platoon. Now, this is interesting, very interesting. So I'll put my sensible hat on for a second. So you take your platoon commander, of course, pay your tax. Then you've got 2 engineer squads. And again, they must have that, in inverted commas, engineer special rule. Okay? Then you can take up to 3 flamethrower teams, of course, why not? And a transport vehicle. So, 3 Brens, or 3 cars, 3 utility cars, 3 Kuba wagons, whatever. Stick your 3 flamethrowers in there. 2 engineer squads, they're going to be infantry of some description, of course. Probably they're allowed to take anti-tank stuff and all that kind of thing. We know the drill. We know what pioneers do and all that. And you can take another 2 engineer squads as well. So straight away, are you building a barbecue list? Just straight up, you pay for that extra platoon commander and then you just spam loads of this. At a minimum, you've paid your 2 engineer squads as a tax. If you want to, that means you're already buying into extra infantry. So then at that point, you're like, well, I've already paid a couple of 100 points to unlock these flamethrower teams. So obviously I'm going to take 3. And if those engineer squads can take flamethrowers, I'm going to put a couple in there too as well. It's mad. Like, we're going to see, we need to know more. It's going to be, as I said, it poses so many questions. And one of the things they've said is they're going to release a pack and suggested rules pack and selector pack for tourneys. So will tournaments have an entirely separate selector to this? Or will it be quite interesting where you've got almost a sideboard, a bench of different platoons? So you might build 1 of each platoon plus 3 rifle platoons or whatever, all to an equivalent points value or within a points bracket. And then when you find out your mission, you go, right, okay, mission 1, I'm going to take my engineer platoon and my tank platoon because I need to break through because I'm going to be attacking or it's pushing into someone's face. But game 2, I'm going to be defending this or whatever. You find out the mission before you pick what you want. That's quite popular in a lot of game systems, Malifaux, a lot of different games. You can see what the mission is and then decide what units you're going to take, which is really cool tactically, and it's something I massively enjoy about the game systems that I play which have that style. It's a totally flips it on its head. It's not, if you've never played a game like that before, believe me, it's not you're just going to tailor to the game. So it's stupid because the part of the challenge is building a list which can take on anything and you don't know what's coming. So, but it's not like that. If you've not played a game system like this before, it's really fun because you're right, okay, I've got the mission. I know what they're running. They know what I'm running. We both know what we need to do. Do I do something off-piste? Do I try and throw them off kilter? Do I play to my strengths? Do I do what's obvious? All kinds of things. What do I need to do to take on them? What do I think they're going to do? Maybe I should take, my anti-tank platoon, or who knows. So that is a very enticing, tantalizing detail of what's to come in 3rd edition. And I feel like that's going to be the way it is, where you like swap out platoons based on what you find out the mission is. That would be really cool. So we'll see. So I wrote down, will the toys have a separate selection tile? We'll move on. We'll carry on with the platoons. So then we get on to the artillery platoon. And this is where that point I made earlier about, is the platoon command, once you've paid that platoon commander tax, do you just really buy into that area? Now, with the artillery platoon, it's a kind of, it poses both sides. Because on the one hand, you only have to take 1 field artillery. So if you want an anti-tank gun to buff your army, you only need to take 1 little bonus commander tax, and then you can take that 1 field artillery. You're not locked in. You have to buy 2 machine guns. You have to buy 2 mortars. You have to buy 2 engineer squads. It's just 1 field artillery. But, then you can take 3 more. So you could just have 4 17-pounders, right? Tanks are not an issue to me. Oh my gosh, 4 Bofors, you can take multiple. They're very clear. You can take multiple of each platoon. Yes, that's right. You can take multiple of each platoon. So what that means is, if I take 2 rifleman platoons, 4 squads of 5 men each, then I could take 8 Bofors, 8 heavy autocannons, just for the lols. Like, I'm just innocent Bofors double platoon here, Commander. Don't worry about me. Nothing to see here, officer. So, oh my gosh, what is going to happen? What more? I need to see the shooting rules. Oh my gosh, I'm excited. I am excited, it has to be said. And scared. Excited and scared. Now, let's move on. We've got the armoured platoon. Like, blooming, just taking you know what? I can squeeze in 16 light howitzers. I found a way. I mean, let's say the points are relatively the same. As a partisan commander, I know I can take an early war partisan squad, just take the rifles off them, give them pistols, make them inexperienced. That's 4 points a model. So for 20 points plus whatever the cheapest officer on the books is, for 2 squads of 5 4-point dudes, I can then take 4 Bofors and then pay another tax, take another 4, well, not Bofors, like light howitzers. So if you've got access to light howitzers and access to ridiculously cheap infantry slots, you can just rain light artillery shells down, 24. Why not have, if I have, if you spent 200 points on infantry and models, you'd have easily 6 platoons, including officers. And then you can take 24 light artillery guns at, if they're, who knows, just as many as you can afford. So there's definitely going to be some themed lists, let's put it that way, that's for sure. And this is not me talking smack about the rules pack or anything like that. We know very little at this point. So I'm just speculating crazy ideas here. So let me know what you're thinking down in the comment section below. Are you scared, excited? Are you already lining your models up to set fire to them? Are you just chomping at the bit for more like me? I just want to know more. I love bolt action. It's looking like quite a different game, but I'm sure they will keep that core vibe, that core theme of bolt action. So I'm not worried. I'm not worried about whether I want to play the game. I know I want to play the game. It's just, I need to see it now in its full form. I can't wait to play it. It's very, very exciting times, it has to be said. It's like when GW went to 8th edition and they just threw the rulebook out the window, from what we've seen. We'll look at recce infantry platoons. Now, this is how you can get an additional forward artillery observer. So if you want to take... Now, you can't spam them. even in this, you only get one additional one. So this is where they've kind of reined it in. They haven't gone, right, you paid for your Recon platoon, you've paid you for your inexperienced second lieutenant. Go crazy, kid. Have 4 naval artillery observers. You know, it's not like that. But you pay your platoon commander, you pay for your 1 infantry squad, then you can take up to 3 infantry squads. Can't be engineers, whatever the mysterious engineer special rule is. You can take your extra artillery observer or air observer, your choice. And if you want, you can take an anti-tank team. So you can sneak in a little anti-tank team here if you're not massively interested in, if you don't want to take a heavy weapons team, that's the term, heavy weapons platoon, where you can then take up to 3. So if you just want an extra one, you feel you need to top it up, you can take an extra anti-tank team in there. It's a nice little addition. And I feel like these guys are going to be the dudes who can outflank, because really it's just access to more infantry squads. It's like a more restrictive infantry platoon. You have to be in transports. You have access to less options, but can take all of the same stuff as a rifle platoon. You know, you can take a forward observer, you can take transports, you've got to for every unit. And you can take infantry squads that can't have the engineer special rule. So it's like a worse version of the rifle platoon. The only perceived use I can see of it, of like why you would take it, is because obviously it's got some super special rules. And then, and I've gone slightly off piece in terms of the order here. Finally, we've got the armoured platoon. So you get a platoon command vehicle, and whatever vehicle it is, you can pay 10 points to make it a command vehicle. But it looks like it comes with the command. Some come with the command vehicle special rule, so you can have that baked in for some units. Now, you can also take another vehicle, and it's everything. Okay, so there's not a armor car slot and a tank, a tank slot. It's tank destroyer, assault gun, which can be self-propelled artillery, anti-aircraft vehicles, and you can even take an armoured car. And then you can take another one of those. You have to take another one of those, mandatory. So you never, this is what we were talking about before. If you want to take a vehicle, you're taking 2 vehicles. That's it. You're taking 2. You've got to. So you're going to need decent anti-tank, because if people want a vehicle, well, we don't know what the meta's going to be. This could make or break tanks. This is one of my massive questions I want to ask you all in a minute. So we'll dive into that question in a second. But then you can take an additional 3 vehicles. So you can take up to 5 vehicles per platoon. And essentially, because you don't have to take a bonus little infantry officer, the max tax is 10-point tax. Okay, because you can make any vehicle, if it's not a command vehicle, a vehicle for 10 points. You take your second vehicle, but then that's it. So you could consider it, right, I only want 1 vehicle, so the second vehicle is like a massive tax. That's one way of looking at it. But then the other way is, when life gives you lemons, you're taking 2 vehicles. So you think of it in those terms, right? If you're taking vehicles, it's 2. That's the way you got to think about it. So what are the best combinations? What's the most efficiency? You can cover anti-tank and infantry with this slot, if that makes sense. So if you're buying into infantry slots, or you're buying into field gun slots, that's pushing you in one direction. Whereas tanks, the vehicles, they bring the machine guns for the Dakar, and they bring the other weapons too. The big guns, whether it's a howitzer or an anti-tank weapon. So tanks have the potential to be really powerful, because if you're buying into tanks, if that's the theme you're going with your army, there's basically no tax to it whatsoever. You can come up with good combos, so the extra vehicle isn't necessarily taxed. So you're just going to pick a powerful combo or not take it at all, right? And then on top of that, you don't need to spend the tax on an extra officer because you're taking heavy weapon squads. You don't need the mortars and the machine guns. You've got machine guns, right? You don't need the anti-tank weapons. You don't need the artillery. You've got the artillery. You come packing artillery, yeah? So the tank thing, it could be that they're insanely powerful, But the other side of things is that they could be an incredibly massive gamble, because as I mentioned at the start of the video, every rifle platoon can take a bazooka team. So if you're playing against half the factions in the game, they're probably going to have a decent anti-tank option, or semi-decent if we include the Piat, which is, fine, but suffers from range and penetration capability. Now, they can just take, as we mentioned, 4 field guns. You could take, right, I've paid the tax, I've taken my officer, paid for that artillery officer, so now I'm going to, and I've paid for the first gun, I'm going to buy 3 more guns. I'm going to throw vehicles themselves out the window. I can't buy those anymore, but I'll have 2 17-pounders, 2 25-pounders, and I'm just knocking out light vehicles, heavy vehicles, shooting infantry. They're multi-capability weapons, even though they're on opposite ends of the scale. Now, it just means, as I said, so we don't know how the tank meta is going to play out. They could just be so useful to have and an absolute auto-include, or they could be just, there's so many counters to them, and there's such a high points commitment that they're just, you can't touch them, basically. What are the officer stats and rules going to be like, guys? Like, that's a big question for me. Snap 2, is that a thing? I mean, I'm not going to be heartbroken if it's gone. It's kind of cool, but I always forget to use it, and I don't see it used that often. Sometimes it's fine, but not the end of the world if it's gone. But are they going to have cool other stuff? You're taking a lot of these officers, surely they do something, or are they going to be actually not doing anything but really cheap? We don't even know if the small unit rule still exists. So are you going to be taking an officer and 2 dudes, both all with SMGs or assault rifles or something like that, so you can just absolutely rinse people? The rulebook's out the window now, boys. We do not know what they're going to do next with this 3rd edition. It's not minor tweaks, let's put it that way. So, points. With all this, are things going to get cheaper? Is the standard going to become 1,500, 2,000 points, like 40k or something like that? We don't know, because surely if you want to take a variety of units in your list, if you want to have a mortar and a vehicle, that's 2 extra platoons. So you're taking 2 mortars, you're taking 2 vehicles, you're also taking 2 officers on top, as well, not for the vehicle, but including your original officer from your rifle platoon. Are infantry armies going to be really powerful, just loads of 5-man squads, or are infantry armies just going to be totally out of their depth, just facing off against just massive, hordes of high explosive weaponry and Dakar? You can take a ton of Humbers if you want. You can take, you could easily fit at 1,000 points 5 Humbers into a list, 5 of any reasonable armoured car into a list. Who knows? Considering in their own introduction they talk about taking 2 vehicle platoons. They say, if you want to take 2 vehicle platoons, you've got to take 2 rifle platoons. That means it's just a normal, acceptable part of 3rd edition to have more than 5 vehicles, because you get 5 from the first platoon. So, and they're all in the mix together here, boys and girls. It's tanks in with infantry, spamming it all. I hope I'm not coming off as negative here, because I'm very excited. I'm just shell-shocked, because as I'm talking to you guys, I've literally got home from work. Sorry, I meant to actually show these vehicles off just for a bit of fun, and you've just had to stare at the screen. It may as well have been a photograph, but sorry, boys. But, man, the dog's barking. It's just chaos everywhere. But yeah, I'm sure I've missed something, but I just got home, literally grabbed a pen and paper, read through the selectors, and just sort of wrote down any questions that came to mind as I read the article. called JP, spoke to him for 5 minutes as he was closing up from work himself, and then switched on the camera, and here we are. So I've got as many questions as you guys. Do you guys think I've missed something here? You know, put your comments down below. So I think it would be very beneficial for us all. And I could do a follow-up video discussing your questions, your thoughts, your predictions. So if you put a comment down below, I'll give you a shout out in the next video, next Wednesday or Thursday, depending on work, and we'll see where we're at, boys. We'll see what else has been released. I think that'll be a really good. So we'll reconvene in a week. So I hope I hope you're all as excited as I am. There's some big questions, as I've said. I'm at the point of being at risk of waffling now. So chaps, I hope you've enjoyed me slowly lose my composure over the course of this video, and if you have, make sure you give us a like. It really helps the channel out. If you're new here, make sure you've subscribed. We've got big plans for 3rd edition, and we can't wait to start getting the content out. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of that. And if you really enjoy our weekly content over here, consider joining as a member. A little bit goes a long way. It's less than half of the price of a pint of beer a month, but it lets us just buy those little bits of paints, update our scenery, and just keep those units topped up. And hey, if I'm going to need a 20 mortar spam list, now's the time to join, if any. So, with all that being said, I hope you found this video interesting and entertaining. This has been the Scholar Progenium. Thank you very much for your time. Goodbye.